Hello again. Now, marine researcher and founder of Sea Search, Simon Elwen, says panic is unnecessary. This after 2 whale carcasses were found in just under a month near Cape Town. He says that whale populations are experiencing exponential growth. Well, are we likely to see more? He's joining us now to further unpack this. Simon, good afternoon and compliments of the season. Welcome to eNCA. Thank you very much for your time. I guess it's very rare when we'll say that seeing a dead whale on the beach is a good thing. But this time around, it looks like it's happening because of the positive growth, so to speak.
Yes, I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but it is an indication that we have far higher numbers of whales around our coast. And this is happening globally, especially in the southern hemisphere. So the humpback whales, which is what we're seeing off the west coast of Cape Town, is where they're really being flagged, being seen at the moment, have been growing at an exponential rate for the last, since the end of whaling. But we're really seeing those numbers kicking in the last 10 years. So the overall whale numbers are good news. The dead whales are never good news.
Yes. So what's leading to this? Is it the end of whaling that has led much to this growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the southern hemisphere, we haven't had too many other issues that have caused direct deaths of whales since the end of whaling. In the northern hemisphere, some of the populations, like the North Atlantic right whale and a few others, have really battled to recover. But essentially what it breaks down to is that since we stopped killing these animals directly, the populations have slowly and steadily increased. And it's really sort of become very obvious in the last 10 years.
Okay. In the report from another media that I read, it talks about supergroups. Why are they called supergroups?
It's a good catchy name. It was coined by Professor Ken Finley's over at CPUT. He's also doing some research on these animals. So what we're getting off the west coast of South Africa, so it's in the southern Benguela, that's basically Cape Town, north into Namibia, it's an incredibly nutrient-rich ecosystem. So we get historically huge numbers of sardines and anchovies, things like that, and krill. And so this food availability is allowing these whales to feed at our latitude, and that's quite unusual globally because most of the migratory whales are feeding down in the Antarctic or in the northern hemisphere, in the Arctic regions, because that's where there's a lot of nutrients over the summer months. So we're in a very interesting situation where we have these animals feeding in what we think of as mid-latitude, so only 30 degrees south, because we have this nutrient-rich Benguela right off our shores. So it's a really unique access to massive groups of feeding whales. And something about the way the food is aggregating is resulting in the animals all bunching together into these incredibly huge groups, which is a globally unique phenomenon.
So they are feeding off the west coast of South Africa as they are still migrating further south?
Yes, at the moment we think what's happening is the animals they mostly migrate northwards in around June. They go past our coast and they go up to the warm waters. These are humpback whales off Mozambique on the east coast, Angola on the west coast. And on the way south, they feed as they're sort of migrating down coastal Namibia and western South Africa. And they're feeding as they come south. So we see continually the sort of southward movement in individuals and in the groups. But when there's food available, they are stopping to eat. But there are some indications that we might be getting East Coast animals feeding here as well. Very much a work in progress for ourselves and some other research groups working in the area. But really a fascinating area for us to be able to work.
Yeah, I know you said quite correct. It's not a good thing when one of them dies. I understand that, but this is an indication that there's a lot of movement, and you've got these super groups feeding off the west coast. Should we expect more whales to die for whatever reason because there's so many of them? I don't know what causes them to wash up dead on the beach.
The short answer is yes, we can expect more whales. There are still hundreds of whales off the west side of the Cape Peninsula. The easiest to go see them off Scarborough, Chapman's Peak, or even Sea Point. But because you have such high numbers, you are going to get some level of natural mortality, and that could be animals dying from illness or starvation. They haven't eaten very well for months. But with these high numbers of animals here, a major concern for myself and many other conservationists is what we call ship strikes and entanglements. Because a lot of our laws in fishing in South Africa and globally has really developed in a world where we didn't have many whales. We now are catching crayfish, for example, during the same season that we have the West Coast feeding animals. And we have large numbers of ships moving in and out of Table Bay and Saldanha Bay, and this right moving through and very near these large groups of whales. So it's sort of, in many ways, it feels like it's not a new occurrence, but the sort of large numbers that we're seeing over the last 10 years has not really filtered through to some of the management bodies that it needs to. So we're really concerned about ship strikes, especially.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have many of those accidents. Finally, someone on the other scale, because there are many people who love to watch the whales. I mean, surely the growth in the numbers, especially in the West Coast and the Southern Coast, there by Hermanas and all those places, it's good news for tourism.
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment, this sort of feeding supergroup phenomenon hasn't really kicked in the global media, but it is in many ways equivalent to, or possibly even a better phenomenon than the sardine run, which we have on our East Coast. And so I think there's huge opportunity for this to be developed as a tourism market, but it really needs to be done sustainably. These animals are feeding here because they're hungry, and therefore they're sensitive. The last thing we wanted to end up with a sort of crazy, unmanaged number of boats around. South Africa, the whale watching industry is generally pretty good, but there are a lot of people out there just all taking a chance to see the whales. It's incredible to do, but we ask that people please respect the 300-meter distance boundary that is set in South African law.
Yeah, we have to sustain this. We have to act responsibly. Thank you very much for that bit of good news about the whale population that's been growing and feeding off the west coast of South Africa. That's marine researcher and founder of Sea Search, Simon Elwen.